Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into the sources so you get the crucial insights fast. Today, we're tackling a really monumental book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
It really is monumental. Millions of copies sold, translated everywhere. It even made that Library of Congress list of the 10 most influential books in the U.S. Quite something.
Yeah, it's huge. But what always struck me was Frankl's own reaction to its success.
Right. He didn't really see it as, hooray for me.
Yeah.
He called it an expression of the misery of our time.
Meaning its popularity showed how much people were grappling with finding meaning in life.
Exactly. He felt it hit on this universal question. And interestingly, he first wanted to publish it anonymously.
Really? Why?
Well, his goal wasn't personal fame. It was just to get one core message across, that life can have meaning under any conditions, even the absolute worst.
Like a concentration camp.
Precisely. He thought if he could show that, using the camps as the ultimate test case, maybe the idea would finally gain a hearing.
And that's what we're diving into today, isn't it? Frankl's insights on survival, resilience, finding purpose, all drawn from those harrowing experiences.
Yeah.
And his therapy, logotherapy.
Yeah, we'll unpack how he found meaning in, unimaginable circumstances and what that might mean for you listening.
Okay, so let's start at the unimaginable point, life in the camps. Frankl didn't focus only on the huge headline horrors, did he?
No, he acknowledged those were well documented. He zeroed in on what he called the multitude of small torments, the daily psychological grind on the average prisoner. It's a subtle shift in focus, but really powerful.
It gets at the dehumanization, doesn't it?
Completely stripped of everything, possessions, identity, just becoming a number. Frankl himself was number 119,104.
Wow.
Yeah. And imagine arriving at Auschwitz, that infamous finger game, an SS officer just casually points left or right.
Life or death.
For 90%, it was death, straight to the crematoriums, which were disturbingly disguised as shower blocks. Bath.
It's just horrific. And he talks about psychological phases the prisoners went through. The first was shock.
Yes, shock. He describes this initial, almost bizarre delusion of reprieve. A fleeting hope, maybe it wouldn't be that bad.
Which shattered pretty quickly, I imagine.
Instantly. Everything taken. Rings, clothes. Frankl himself had this powerful moment. He actually wrote shit when they confiscated his life's work.
His manuscript.
Yes, a scientific book he'd painstakingly written. In that second, he said he saw the plain truth. His whole previous life just wiped out. That was the culminating point of the shock phase.
And after the shock?
Came apathy. A kind of emotional death. It sounds awful, but it was almost a necessary defense mechanism.
To cope with the constant horror.
Exactly. You just become numb. Frankl writes about seeing guards beat prisoners for no reason, watching a boy have frostbitten toes picked off. Horrible things.
And feeling nothing.
Or very little. He mentions sipping his soup while a corpse was dragged right past him. It wasn't callousness, it was the soul shutting down to survive the constant overload of disgust, horror, pity. It's chilling. Which leads to this term he used, the Muslim syndrome.
Uh-huh. It was grim camp slang for those who'd completely given up hope, lost the will to live.
And they often died first.
Often, yes. Even if physically they seemed stronger, it showed how critical that inner will was.
Yeah.
It led to this stark advice. Shave daily. Look fit for work.
Because any sign of weakness
Could mean the gas chambers. It was this constant, desperate fight against giving up, both physically and mentally.
Yet, amidst all this, there was resilience. Unexpected adaptation.
Incredible resilience. Frankl was amazed by it himself. People sleeping soundly jammed next to loud snorers. Or, bizarrely, having healthier gums despite, terrible hygiene and no vitamins.
How is that even possible?
It led him to say, yes, a man can get used to anything, but do not ask us how. It points to something incredibly tough in the human spirit.
And that toughness, that ability to endure, seems tied directly to his core idea, the power of having a why. Absolutely. He quoted Nietzsche a lot. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. That wasn't just a nice quote for him. It was the key. It turns suffering from just pointless agony into a challenge with a purpose.
So where did they find that why in such a place?
Often in their inner world, love was huge for Frankl personally. He talks about having these vivid conversations with his wife in his head during those awful marches.
Even though he didn't know if she was still alive.
Right. He realized love goes way beyond the physical. It connects to the spiritual being. That thought, that inner connection sustained him. It shows how powerful that internal resource can be.
It's amazing. And not just love, but beauty, too, in a concentration camp.
Yeah, tiny glimpses. He mentions prisoners looking towards the Salzburg Mountains at sunset, or seeing beauty in a puddle reflecting the sky over the camp. And art, even really crude forms. Impromptu cabaret shows, someone singing an Italian aria hoping for extra soup. Frankl himself remembers being stirred by a violin playing a sad tango, and it made him think of his wife's birthday. Little moments of connection to something beyond the barbed wire.
Finding moments of humanity. And humor, too. That seems almost impossible.
But he insisted it was vital. Another of the soul's weapons, he called it. It gave a sense of aloofness, a way to rise above the situation, even for seconds.
Like that story he tells about the surgeon.
Yeah, trying to make his friend laugh by imagining him back in surgery, hearing the foreman yell, "Action! Action!" like they did in the camp. It's dark humor, obviously, but it's about reclaiming a tiny bit of mental freedom.
Which speaks to the relativity of things. How suffering can feel all-consuming, but tiny joys can feel immense.
Exactly. He used that gas analogy. Suffering fills the soul completely, big or small, but then the tiniest good thing could be a huge joy, like finding out your transport wasn't going to Mauthausen, which had gas chambers, but to Dachau, which didn't.
They danced.
A collective dance of pure relief. That small difference was everything.
It underlines his point about the two races of people, doesn't it? Decent and indecent.
Yes, and that these aren't tied to groups like prisoners or guards. They cut across everything. He saw decent guards and indecent prisoners, and vice versa.
Like the foreman who gave him bread.
Right. A small act, risky for the foreman. But Frankl stressed it wasn't just the bread, it was the human something, the kindness and the gesture that mattered immensely.
That fundamental human connection. Okay, so let's transition to how these experiences shaped his therapy, logotherapy.
Right. The third Viennese school, he called it. Different from Freud's focus on the will to pleasure or Adler's will to power.
Logotherapy is about
The will to meaning. Frankl believed our primary drive as humans is to find meaning and purpose in our lives.
and that still resonates, doesn't it? You mentioned that survey.
Yeah, the Johns Hopkins one. Almost 8,000 students, and 78% said finding purpose was their main goal, more than making money or anything else.
So what happens when people don't find meaning?
That's what Frankl called the existential vacuum, a feeling of inner emptiness, meaninglessness. He saw it as a major issue in modern society.
Leading to boredom, maybe.
Definitely. He called it Sunday neurosis, that feeling when the rush of the week stops and the emptiness hits, but also depression, aggression, addiction. He linked them to this lack of meaning.
He did that study with unemployed miners, right?
Decades ago. He found their depression wasn't just about being jobless, it was about feeling useless. So he encouraged unpaid but meaningful volunteer work.
And it helped, even though they still didn't have jobs.
Yes, their depression lifted. It showed him quite powerfully that man does not live by welfare alone. We need purpose.
So if the goal isn't just comfort or a tension-free life, what is it?
Logotherapy says mental health isn't about achieving homeostasis or zero tension. It's about a healthy tension. He called it nuodynamics.
Nuodynamics.
Yeah, from the Greek word nuos, meaning mind or spirit. It's the tension between what you've already achieved and what you still ought to accomplish, or the gap between who you are and who you could become.
So it's about striving, having a goal that pulls you forward.
Exactly. A worthwhile goal creates that healthy, dynamic tension that gives life meaning.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that?
Yeah.
Especially when we feel stuck or face big fears. This leads to that fascinating technique. Paradoxical intention.
Yes, paradoxical intention. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's brilliant. You basically invite the person to try to do the very thing they're afraid of.
Intentionally bring on the fear.
Or the symptom, yeah, even just for a moment, often with a dose of humor.
Like the man afraid of sweating.
Right. Frankl told him, show people what a sweater you are. Try to sweat 10 quarts. And just intending to do it, trying to force it, broke the cycle. The phobia disappeared in a week after 4 years of suffering.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The writer's cramp example.
Same idea. The bookkeeper couldn't write smoothly. Frankl told him, okay, show me how badly you can scribble. Make the worst scrawl possible.
Yeah.
He tried, but he couldn't. He found he could write normally again. It works for insomnia, too. Telling patients to try to stay awake often helps them fall asleep.
Because it takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And humor is often key. It creates that aloofness, that ability to step back and not be totally controlled by the fear or the symptom.
It really shows the mind's power to reframe things. So broadening out again, this all feeds into his ideas about freedom and responsibility.
Absolutely core to his message, that famous quote, Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
Even in a concentration camp, you still had that inner freedom.
That ultimate freedom. He really pushed back against what he called pandeterminism, the idea that we're just products of our biology or environment. He argued, no, we're ultimately self-determining.
He uses that story about Dr. J, the mass murderer, to illustrate this, doesn't he?
It's a startling example. Dr. J had been responsible for horrific acts in the Nazi euthanasia program. A truly terrible past.
But then,
Years later, imprisoned by the Russians, he apparently underwent a complete transformation. Became, in Frankl's words, the best comrade you can imagine, living to the highest moral standards.
it shows people aren't predictable, are they? That change is possible.
Precisely. Frankl said it showed man is more than psyche. We're not just the sum of our past or our psychological makeup. There's a spiritual core capable of choice and change.
So bringing this to us today, freedom isn't the whole story.
No, that's why Frankl made that famous suggestion. We need a statue of responsibility on the West Coast to complement the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast.
Because freedom without responsibility.
Is incomplete, even dangerous. Freedom has to be lived responsibly.
And this ties into tragic optimism. What exactly is that?
It's not about being blindly cheerful. It's about being optimistic in spite of what he called the tragic triad: pain, guilt, and death. These are unavoidable parts of life.
So tragic optimism is about how we respond to them.
Yes. It's about finding ways to creatively turn life's negative aspects into something positive or constructive.
Like Jerry Long, the quadriplegic man he mentions.
Powerful example. Paralyzed from the neck down after an accident, typed with a mouth stick and said, "I broke my neck, it didn't break me. Without the suffering, the growth I have achieved would have been impossible." He turned his suffering into an achievement, found new meaning.
So suffering itself isn't the goal, but our response to unavoidable suffering can be meaningful.
Exactly. Frankl was very clear. Unnecessary suffering is just masochism. But if suffering is unavoidable, like an incurable illness or profound loss,
Then it becomes an opportunity.
an opportunity to change ourselves, to grow, to show what humans are capable of: dignity, courage, finding meaning even then. It's about how we bear the suffering.
Like the story of the grieving doctor.
Yes, the elderly doctor, deeply depressed after his wife died. Frankl asked him, "What would have happened if you had died first and your wife has survived you?"
And the doctor said,
He said, "Oh, for her, this would have been terrible, how she would have suffered." And Frankl replied, "You see, doctor, such suffering has been spared her, and it is you who have spared her this suffering. But now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her."
wow, that reframes the pain entirely.
Suddenly, his suffering wasn't meaningless. It was a sacrifice, something endured out of love for his wife. It gave his grief meaning.
That's incredibly profound, and it connects to his idea about the past, doesn't it? The granaries of the past.
Uh-huh. Instead of envying young people for their future possibilities, he suggested looking back with satisfaction at the realities you've stored in the past.
Things you've actually done.
Work done, love loved, and especially sufferings bravely suffered. These are concrete achievements stored safely in your past, part of your life's harvest. They can't be taken away. It's a way to find richness in looking back, not just forward.
Okay, so we've explored the experiences, the philosophy, the therapy. But what about the end of the ordeal? Liberation. It wasn't just instant joy, was it?
No, far from it. He describes this strange sense of depersonalization, like they'd literally lost the ability to feel pleased. They had to slowly, carefully relearn how to feel joy.
It'd say the word freedom, but couldn't feel it.
Exactly. It felt unreal. The reality of it just didn't sink in immediately.
And there were dangers in that sudden release, too. He called it the bends of the soul.
Yes, like a diver coming up too fast. The sudden release from years of intense psychological pressure could be dangerous. It could lead to a kind of moral deformity.
How so?
People losing restraint. He saw men trampling farmers' fields, feeling entitled because of what they'd endured. He describes having to gently guide them back to the idea that suffering doesn't give you the right to inflict suffering on others.
A difficult transition back to normalcy.
Extremely. And often met with bitterness and disillusionment when they got home.
Finding people didn't understand.
Or seemed indifferent. Hearing things like, "Oh, we didn't know," or even, "We suffered too." And the worst pain, the absolute limit, was discovering that the loved one whose memory kept them alive wasn't there anymore. That hope was gone.
It's hard to even comprehend. Yet Frankl himself, after losing his own family, he chose to stay in Vienna.
It's quite remarkable. He chose reconciliation over revenge, went back to psychiatry, dedicated his life to helping others find meaning, rejecting collective guilt.
Believing that individual capacity for good even after seeing the worst.
Yes, and he believed his book could help. In that process, he called it autobibliotherapy.
Healing through reading.
Yeah, the idea that the book wouldn't tell you what choice to make, but it could show you why you needed to find meaning in your choices, why you needed to act responsibly, inspire that inner shift.
Which really brings us full circle to his own life's purpose.
He said it clearly to his students once. His mission was to help others find the meaning of theirs. That mission came directly out of everything he experienced and learned. His life became the message.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, Frankl's message seems incredibly relevant still. Life will have difficulties, maybe even seem meaningless at times.
But his point is, it's never truly meaningless. That ultimate freedom, the power to choose our attitude, our response, that's always ours.
It puts a huge emphasis on responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. And maybe the question for you is, how can you apply that tragic optimism in your own life? How can you face unavoidable challenges, find constructive meaning, embrace responsibility, and seek purpose not just in the big things, but day to day?
Because Frankl left us with a stark reminder, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
Since Auschwitz, we know what man is capable of, and since Hiroshima, we know what is at stake. A powerful thought to leave you with.